to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exie and I'm your host. Journey with me through Africa's vast variety of culture, heritage, and discuss issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure you add this podcast to your frequent podcast rotations, and don't forget to share and follow this podcast. Hello guys, and thank you so much for tuning in for another episode on African Teapot. Today's episode is titled How to Use Negative Media. And pretty much this is a continuation, or you would say like a part 2 to the conversation that we had last week. So if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I'll encourage you to go ahead and do that. Before we get into our gisting, like I said, let us check out our African fact tip for the week. Our African fact tip for this week is actually sent in by Kevin Osun, and Kevin Osun pretty much is saying that in Africa we do have domestic animals and wild animals. So if you want to see wild animals, you need to go to the zoo or safari to see them. Okay, so at home we have domestic animals. What do I mean? Animals that are not wild, like dogs, cats, sheep, chicken, goat, right? We have those at home. They live in our immediate domestic setting. So we call them in Africa domestic animals, and the rest you find them in the wild. All right, so we don't live with lions and stuff like that. Pretty much that's what he's saying. That's what Kevin is saying. Thank you so much for that African fact tip for the week, Kevin. And if you want to submit anything that you think is important for people to know about Africa, like I said, you can always email, DM us, or comment in anywhere, social platform that you want to reach out and pass on that information. It is always appreciated. Now, getting into our gist. Okay, so last week we were talking about how we should be responsible to how we listen to these motivational speakers and things like that. And today I thought it is appropriate to tell someone, okay, when you see negative information, what do, right? We all know the general sense. Most people do say. They would say, don't follow them, right? Why follow someone that is not inspiring you, someone that you think what they're saying doesn't help you or anything? Why do you follow that person, and why do you consume what they're saying? So most people would tell you block them. They would tell you unfollow them, unsubscribe if you are, which I would agree, especially if you're someone who is looking for emotional help, especially if you're someone who is having a fragile or difficult emotional climb or down, whatever your journey is emotionally. You should be very careful when you keep information that is not healthy, especially if you're aware it's unhealthy. I don't think you should keep such information around. And again, you shouldn't keep such information around if you have young people around you, like children. If you disagree with a celebrity, you disagree with a specific culture in terms of how it's influencing your kids, I would say, okay, keep it away from the kids, right? Most people would say that. Now, I also want to take us to the other side of the spectrum, which is watching movies and music. So we're going to stick with music, which was a conversation I had with someone, and so it inspired this episode. Lil Nas X is an American rapper, and he has a rather young demographic following. So he has a very young following, audience on social media and stuff. And he released his latest video, and it was everywhere. I mean, the controversy was everywhere. They covered it on different podcasts. They covered it on different YouTube channels and news and things like that. He's seen as a kind of like a devil worshiper, like he's promoting satanism. And because he released these brands of I don't know if they're Nikes with, it says it has blood drops in it and things like that. Honest to you, I watched the video, but I can't even remember what the song, like, I understand. I felt like it was satire, pretty much. That's how I saw it. But I felt like the video was it was exaggerated in what he was, what he was saying. and which I felt was on purpose. A friend brought this to me, and we talked about it. And I think that he purposefully does that. He's doing that. I mean, Old Town Road was big, and he has to bring out something that people will talk about yet again, right? And I mean, the evangelicals, the conservatives, Christians, because obviously when you're talking about Satan and the devil, that's Christians are going to come out swinging and talking, right? Which to me, I believe is done on purpose. I believe it's a marketing thing. It's a publicity stunt. It's on purpose, right? He's looking for the clicks. It's like a bait. He's looking for the clicks. He wants to be trending. He wants money. It's going to generate money. The video, people see it and people will buy those shoes because one, they are people who are mentally vulnerable to believe that, oh, maybe that's the devil's blood or whatever, which I know it's up to you to argue if it is or not, okay? I'm just saying people are going to feed into that. And it was sold out, and he made it was like 666 or something. I don't know how many copies of the shoes he made. I mean, the controversy is just loud, right? And I believe it's on purpose. So now what we are trying to say is that when we are faced with something like this, right, what do we do? Because it's very difficult. We are in a society where you can't tell someone else what to do, right? You can't. The only people that you can tell them what to do are your children. And these days, if you realize it, you need to tell them in a loving way and in a respectful way. How? Dear African parents, how? What do we mean? We mean we need to change that mentality of just shouting at someone and saying, don't watch something. Because when celebrities do this, or when people do things like this, which are wrong, they would give reasons to why they do it. But if you are telling someone not to consume it and you just say don't consume it and don't give a reason, your advice kind of looks like I'm trying to say it's like a dictatorship. Don't do something. Then on the other side, someone is like, well, buy the devil worshipping shoes because A, B, C, D. And you are just over there saying, don't buy it, don't listen to it just because I'm your mom and I told you to. I mean, if you're a human being and you have a brain, you would realize that somebody else is giving you a chance of a choice, and on another side, someone is not, right? So as parents or as individuals who consume this information out here, who are constantly faced with the decision of what is right information to use and what is wrong information to use, it always helps when you look at the reasons why something is not beneficial to you. This also includes children. So if you think your child is following Lil Nas and you want to tell them the video is not good, I would suggest you use the video as a teaching moment for the kid, okay? This is what whoever you're following doesn't mean that everything he does is right, okay? Because you admire certain things somebody does doesn't mean that everything they do is going to be right or must be emulated. That's what I'm trying to say, which last week we already covered. When you are listening to someone, you need to be careful and stop idolizing that person, okay? Because that person is human just like you, will make mistakes. Some of their beliefs will not align with your lifestyle or with who you are as a person, all right? But some of what they do or things they do will inspire you to make choices for yourself, pretty much. So if your kid is following Lil Nas, and the way society is, going and battling the fact that Lil Nas should not release that video is just a battle that is going to take forever. That's what I'm saying. You can't stop them. It's artistry. You can't tell someone what their art. I mean, that's the world we live in, okay? You can't pick and choose. There's going to be bad and there's going to be good. So now, if you see a bad thing, then you use that bad thing to teach someone. That's what I'm trying to say. You use that bad thing to educate yourself. If someone has put information that is contrary to you, then you will look for other information that you think is better if you're raising your children or if you're trying to inspire your own self. You say, no, you know what, this doesn't make sense. So let me look for an alternative or an alternate information so that this kid can make a judgment as to what is right in this specific instance and what is wrong. Okay? So that's just what I'm trying. So I'm just trying to say, even if it's negative, media we are consuming or positive, if you have realized something is not right, let us use it as a teachable moment. Use that moment to say, well, it's not right. You understand? He might be a good person, but you understand, I disagree with what he's doing, and spark up a conversation. And you realize that conversation will lead to questions. If someone is, consuming that information or they idolize that person, then you would help that person in that instance in saying, you might admire one or two things Lil Nas does, but it doesn't mean that everything he does is right. Just like you make mistakes, right? So Lil Nas makes mistakes as well. Or there are things you do that someone wouldn't like. It's the same thing with Lil Nas. So where you are, what Lil Nas is doing, do you think is right? Maybe coming from a background or from a Christian background. The kid might be like, oh no, or whoever is listening to them, it must not be children. Whoever is listening will be like, oh no, it's not. It's like, okay, so you can disagree with this, right? But it doesn't mean that if there is something he has said that inspired you, then suddenly that is, you understand, you don't need to make that person feel so bad that in the first place, they were listening to Lil Nas. You will use that situation to teach that individual. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say, because that is art, which is what Lil Nas is doing. Probably he's promoting Satanism. Please, Christians, don't come for me. I'm Christian, and I am just trying to say the battle of saying, well, he should be canceled or he shouldn't be played means it's going to take us back years where they censored everything, including positive information, right? So what I'm trying to say is that be your own censor. Be your own person in terms of what is placed out there. You choose to use it in a positive way in your life, your family's life, or someone that you're seeing that probably is following someone blindly, right? Use everything around you as kind of like a tool, a teaching tool, or, a stepping tool or something like that. Bashing or sounding hateful towards somebody, if you start saying, oh, a whole person is so terrible and things like that, when someone has spent their time looking at that person or idolizing that person, only alienates that person, only makes that person feel like they're stupid, or make them feel like they're incapable of reasoning for themselves. And what they do is they're going to shut you up, okay? So you, the Christian, shouting at the top of your voice, you realize that you're going to be shut out. That's just what I'm trying to say. Okay, guys, I think I've been speaking for long, but hopefully you get the message and you understand what I mean. And if, again, any questions, let me know, right? It's a conversation that is evolving, and I know we're going to keep talking about it. I know that, but thank you so much for listening, guys, and see you guys next week for another episode. Thank you for listening, and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at African_teapot.